general understanding of being told that you're cancer free is like a lot of people get to ring a bell. I didn't get to ring a goddamn bell, but you ring the bell and everything's great. You can go back to your
Yeah.
life as it was, and like, oh my God, you're back to normal, and aren't you so happy you can have your
Yeah.
life back? And none of that is true. You don't get to get your life back. You don't get to go back to normal. You don't get to have anything that even resembles who you were prior to, whether physically or otherwise.
Welcome to Cancer Bites, bold voices, big insights, and unstoppable energy. Because cancer doesn't get the last word.
Okay, I'm recording because we are having some hilarious moments, and I think that this is one of the things that makes what we're doing a bit different and special. There is a level of levity and joy that we need to bring to it to kind of counterbalance what is serious and is painful. But at the same time, let's bring some joy to it when we can, if we can. And like Edward, everything about you already, like I can see you on Broadway on a stage. I can see you doing your thing already, like, so
I
we
think
can't
I
let
think
it
maybe
define
that
us.
phase of my life might be over, but
Never over. It's always a
but I'm
part of
glad
you.
I'm still giving the vibes.
You completely are. You completely are. And I think you'll always give that value for me, for sure. For sure. It's absolutely fantastic to meet you. And
You
properly.
do.
You still have to come down to Barbados at some point.
Listen, don't tempt me. I just got back from Mexico. I'm already looking at Google flights of like, where can I go next?
Well,
Barbados.
I tell you exactly. So, before we talk more about you coming to Barbados, though, I have to officially introduce you to our family as you are Edward Miskie, and you are an embodiment of courage. Let's just put it that way. That's a nice way. This and Edward's looking surprised, like, oh, is she talking about me? Yes, I'm talking about you. You definitely, faced a diagnosis, you went through treatment, and your passions are very much real and alive in everything that you do, I think. Your musical theater and your writing. So we would love to hear more about that.
I
Every
mean, there's
experience.
so much to say.
I know. Well, you said that you were diagnosed with a rare non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at a young
Yes.
age. So can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, those of us who are cancer newbies, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it sounds it sounds horrible already just to say it. And I'm sure you can tell us a bit more about what that was actually like.
Oh, I sure can. And the funny thing is, too, and I'm sure others who have had non-Hodgkin's or currently have it have been told, like, oh, well, that's the good kind of cancer to get.
Oh
Like,
God.
which is just, again, cancer's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the stupid shit that people say to you when you have it is just out of this world. So, yes,
Mm.
when I was 25 years old, I was diagnosed with rare enlarged B-cell Burkitt's like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That was not my original diagnosis. At first, it was just a diffused B-cell lymphoma. And then when I switched hospitals because they were terrible, I was re-diagnosed with a different one with my oncologist who like literally just picked up my slide of my biopsy and was like, yeah, no, that's not what that is. And I was like so flabbergasted that I she recently just found me on Instagram, which is hilarious. I was like, what? But yeah, it was really strange. It was this gigantic tumor that like blew up to the size of about a large grapefruit in the course of about 4 to 5 months or so.
Oh.
And radiate or chemo wasn't really working. They would do chemo and it would shrink and then it would grow back over the course of a couple days. Like it was disgusting.
Yeah.
Um, and it never grew back to that size, but it would like shrink down and grow back and then shrink down and grow back. So eventually we ended up doing radiation, which seemed to do the job. And then I did a stem cell transplant
Oh,
after the fact,
yeah.
where an autologous, where I was my own donor. So, and I insisted on that because I was 25, I was in the best shape of my life, and I was like, there's
Yeah.
no reason why I can't be my own donor. And they kept pushing for me to have someone else as a donor. And that's one of the reasons why I left the first hospital because I was like, I'm not a lab rat here. Like, this is what I
Yeah.
want. Like, please
Yeah.
stop. And it was an education hospital, which, like, of course I support, but I felt like they were more so trying to appease the students and get
Yes.
like high marks on something and treat me like a paper that they could publish instead of actually trying to help me, which was infuriating. And of course, those who have been through chemo will know chemo brain kind of like lowers your senses and your cognitive abilities. And like, you're not necessarily clear headed to be like, hey, I don't want this.
Yeah. Yes.
And it was because they had kind of stopped chemo, realizing it wasn't working, surprise, and moved me to radiation that chemo brain started to lift a little bit. And I had a moment to be like, hang on, this isn't adding up. This doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Why are you treating me like I'm a 90-year-old woman who can't produce blood and
Yeah.
blood cells? Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about this. And so I switched to a different hospital, and I was in fact very vindicated
Well, that's good.
and ended up getting my way, which really in the end is the important part.
Well, I mean, we say that and we're laughing, but that has been a common theme in some of our episodes and our talks with our guests. That idea of you need to still feel a sense of autonomy. You still need to feel a sense of direction and that you have a say in what's happening to you. And I think that you've really highlighted the importance of that. And I think a lot of resilience seems to come from that, that even in your foggy, weak moments, you have to be able to say, wait a minute, this is what I want, this is not what I want, but also to be able to change your mind, it sounds like.
Sure. And like, listen, I'm very lucky. I come from a medical family. My grandfather owned a chain of pharmacies across New England. My mother is a pharmacist. She used to mix chemotherapy, and she
Right.
would sit in my appointments and be like, "That's not right. That dose isn't
Yeah.
right. That's not
Nice.
the protocol."
Nice.
And thank God for her, because if she had not been there, I wouldn't have known. And there were a couple slip ups that they had that would have been either fatal or very severe, that she caught. And so it is very important that you have someone who knows what they're doing to advocate for you,
Yeah.
and at the very, very least, have someone writing every single thing down or record them. Like check on your state. New York State, you're allowed. It's a single party consent state, so you're allowed to record
Okay.
anyone for any reason at any time,
Good.
without letting them know. But there are states where you're not allowed to do that. So you would have to inform that you're recording the conversation for your own
Yeah.
understanding later, so you can follow along. And otherwise take notes. My mom still has notes. I still look at them sometimes. When I was writing my book, I referred to them and to make sure that I had everything correct. And I still will look at them from time to time, depending on what I'm doing that's relevant to it. But you have to have somebody with you, even,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, and I don't mean to cast doubt on hospitals or doctors, because you want to trust them, but
Yes.
in the end, like a social worker, a patient advocate, any kind of like figurehead that comes from the hospital that is there to like help you, in the end, is being paid by the hospital, and like
I
that
see.
is their best interest. And it's unfortunate, because the hospitals here in America are for profit, and they're going to do everything they can to protect that. And so
Yeah.
you really do have to have someone who's on your side, at least there to field questions and have some
Yeah.
kind of comprehension, even if you visit it later.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you brought up your book, which we'd love to hear more about. It's called Cancer, Musical Theater, and Other Chronic Illnesses. And I just love that title. So I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to read it before we had this conversation,
Oh,
but
it's okay. Shout out to my friend Alex, who came up with the title. I am not that smart.
yay!
I am not that smart. He came up with that like on a whim when we were grocery shopping one day, and I
Oh,
was like, huh,
wonderful.
that's great. I'm using
Yeah.
it.
It's great. It's great because the title alone shows us that cancer has clearly shaped the way you live, how you create, and how you inspire others. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that in terms of the book?
Sure. So, I mean, the book kind of came from a place of feeling absolutely insane. Um, and this is the number one thing I talk about all the time, and I think is not talked about enough on the survivor side of things. I think the general understanding of being told that you're cancer free is like a lot of people get to ring a bell. I didn't get to ring a goddamn bell, but you ring the bell and everything's great. You can go back to your
Yeah,
life as it was, and like, oh my God, you're back to normal, and aren't you so happy you can have your
yeah,
life back? And none of that is true. You don't get to get your life back. You don't get to go back to normal. You don't get to have anything that even resembles who you were prior to, whether physically or otherwise.
yeah,
And you just kind of have to like figure it out. But I was in a place where I was going through the motions of the life that I had before, and it
yeah,
just felt very disorienting and very hollow. And like I was just like this robot that was like doing what I knew, because I
yeah.
felt like that's what I had to do. And there's some photos that if you go back and look at me during that time, like I'm just like black behind the eyes. Like
Oh,
there's nothing there.
yeah.
Which is kind of sad and scary. But I wrote the book because I met someone who, and you'll have to read the book to find out how and why.
Yeah, okay.
But but I met
Cool.
someone who communicated to me that they were like 3 or 4 months out of being told that they were cancer free, and they felt so lost and so depressed and so horrible. And we just sat there for like 2 hours talking about it, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, so you and I are not the only ones. And
Yeah.
there has to be other people who feel this way. And so I started reaching out to friends I knew who had some version of cancer or another to ask them, like, hey, you good? How was the after
Yeah.
cancer part? And
Yeah.
that was the number one through line was that you just feel lost and you
Lost.
are at a loss of what to do or who you are or what to do next. And so I was like, well, I'm writing a book and I'm writing it about this.
Yeah.
And about half of the book is about that because I do walk you through the diagnosis and the journey of
Yeah.
being treated and the
Yeah.
crazy shit that happened there. But there is definitely, and this is going to be my second book, um, a lot to talk about in terms of what happens to you after cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm 13 years out. I'm 13 years cancer free, and I still have moments where I'm like, who are you?
Yeah.
And it's getting better, and I definitely have found, to your point, that I have used and have kind of commandeered cancer as the vehicle in which I create and I make things happen. And it really has kind of, in a very positive and opposite way that I wanted it to, uh, taken over a lot of my life.
That's interesting. That is very interesting because very few people, as you say, think about that after part. As you said, the assumption is that, you've had this life change, you triumph in some way when you become cancer free, and you build your life on that triumph, and you just can't, and it's this linear path forward. And I think it's really revealing and enlightening for you to say it's actually not that. And the sense of community that you built through that feeling of being lost, because I think that's something important.
Well, and I would also like to say that, like, I think the visual that I get when I think about this period of time is like, you know how when you're in a dream and like you're in your house that you grew up in, but it isn't your house that you grew up in, but like you know it is. That's
Yeah.
kind of like coming out on the other side. You're like, oh, all of this like looks familiar. Like you are my friends, you are my family. This is my job,
Yeah.
this is my apartment or my
Yeah.
house or where I live. But you're like, but it looks nothing like it.
Yeah. My goodness. Yeah, that funny disassociation of what was your life that so defined you, that must
Yeah.
be hard.
Well, and to the point of creating things, I just finished, we're editing it now, a documentary that hopefully the title will not change between now and the time that this comes out or when it comes out, but it is called Back to Normal. And it's
Okay.
we've interviewed there's three main cancer survivors, myself being one of them, and then we have about 30 others that have contributed little 60-second explanations of their
Oh,
diagnosis and their life after cancer. And so that is going to be, I'm really excited about that. It's called Back to Normal. I think I said that already. And the main discussion is how you don't get to go back to normal.
that's
And
great.
and that is going to be premiering at the Remission Film Festival in the spring,
Oh,
which I
awesome.
which I founded. It's my film festival. I started it.
Brilliant. Yay.
It's our first year, so this is our first one. I'm very excited about it.
Oh,
And that is going to be a fundraiser for Blood Cancer United. So all of that, all of the ticket sales, all of the submission fees for the film festival, everything is going towards cancer research with Blood Cancer United.
oh, brilliant. You see, that's the kind of thing that I think we need. It's great to that it's a vehicle that is something that will be enlightening and uplifting and also serve that positive purpose. So I think, I'll ask now, just for our listeners and our viewers out there, are there any specific strategies or support systems? I know you might have, mentioned them in passing, but can you pinpoint any things that helped you to stay resilient specifically when you were facing this before and after?
I think this is going to sound weird, but I think it was anger.
Hmm.
I was angry.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and sad
Hmm.
that I was put in this position in the first place.
Mhm.
There's a woman who we did get a video from for the documentary who says that she grieved the life that she never was going to have.
Wow.
And her career and her children she would never have and like and all these other things. And I think that that's such a great way of putting it because you do in a way go through the 7 steps of grief. And my motivator was anger because I was in such a good place. I felt in my career that I was like gonna go, I was performing full time and I felt like I was finally getting some attention here and there from like people who mattered and made decisions. and and then it all went away because I had to disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was pre social media being what it was. I might have documented it a little differently if whatever. Um, but I think it was anger because I felt robbed. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of like, especially now, because again, like I didn't come out on the other side being angry and like, let's go get them.
Yeah.
That took years of me
Yeah.
kind of running into walls and bumping into things and being like, "Bruh, I don't know what I'm doing."
Yeah.
Um, and it wasn't immediate. And it's really only been like the last year or so that I've kind of been like harnessing the anger instead of ignoring it and
Mm-hmm.
letting it be like, you know what? This I could look at it as something that fucked my life up and derailed me and where I was going, or I can use it and be like, let's take this thing that screwed up where you thought you were going and use it to not just like heal yourself and reaffirm to yourself that like you can still have the things that you wanted. It's just going to look different, but then
Exactly.
also help people along the way. And isn't that the point,
That is awesome. And that, I mean, it's refreshing to hear because we have had conversations with our guests as well, where there is this kind of brittle, toxic positivity around cancer and around, and it's, oh, yeah, you see, you know exactly what it is, right? And we need to hear that. I think people need to hear that. You're going to feel angry. You are going to feel, the why me and the loss, and that's okay because anger can be very transformative. Anger can be something that ignites and serves to kind of move a transformation forward. So it's important not to try to stifle it or deny it. We have to acknowledge it.
Oh yeah, and I did for years. There's a really great, I just saw it, interview with Alanis Morissette where she talks about anger and how she has used it as a vehicle throughout her
Nice.
career. And like, I mean, listen to her first album, it's angry.
I know.
And that made her. So
Yeah, I'm gonna age
but
myself here, but when Jagged Little Pill came out, that
oh,
was
me too. Loved it. I saw her live in Chicago. Like she's I love her.
yeah,
But all that to say that like what you were saying about like the brittle kind of things that happen, like
yeah,
I think it should be felt. It shouldn't be ignored. And I didn't do support groups straight
mm,
out because of that, because I didn't want to sit around and either be told like everything's gonna be amazing or like be in a room full of people who are crying. Like
yeah,
I needed something in between there, and
Queen.
there were not, and I don't know if there are still not resources like that.
Yeah,
I think from my perspective, the conversation of the after cancer um experience, let's call it, is getting better. I do see a lot of stuff online that talks more about the real stuff.
yeah,
I wrote my book from the perspective of like no one in these spaces is talking about dating, sex, relationships, your body,
yeah,
how you're mentally handling being shell shocked in this entire like
yeah.
strange new world that should look familiar. And it has over the last couple years gotten so much better. And I'm always so glad to see creators and content creators online talking about like, hey, like I'm not happy. Cancer kind of ruined a
Exactly.
lot of things, but here
Exactly.
is a solution that I'm offering. Or like at least acknowledging like, hey, you can be pissed. This isn't fun. You don't
Yeah.
have to be like, oh my God, I did my sun salutation this morning to the and like, do that if that helps, fine, no shade. But like,
Yeah.
but there are definitely times where I'm like, shut up. Like there's got to give me the real stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that what you're talking of, that's actually exactly why what inspired Siobhan and myself to take this kind of approach to it. Siobhan will tell you that there are times when the support group idea, it is either huge amounts of just like oppressive negativity, or it's the extreme of everything's gonna be fine, you're gonna be great, and the realness of it. And as Siobhan would say, cancer bites. That's how we got our title. It's like, God, this bites. Like this is not fun. But what can we do to feel better in the space we're in and focus on things, like as you said, self-care for what it's worth, because it is important to take the tiny steps and feel as if you're empowered to take care of yourself. So yeah, we definitely can relate big time to what you were saying. Oh my goodness. I mean, so I think there's so many positives that I think we can all take from your story, and I'm sure that you yourself have some defining moments of like as much as we, don't want to say things are brittle and shallow, there's some moments of hope I'm sure you can share with us that defined your journey within the anger even.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think having anger is a byproduct of hope because it
Yeah.
means that you want more and you
Yeah.
expect more. And it's one of those things that like theater people or performers talk about, like, right before you go on stage, if you're not nervous, it's time to take a step back because it means you
Yeah.
don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think having anger or grieving or having big feelings around what is happening to you is good because that means you still care and you still want something better and different for yourself. And with that said, the pursuit of that, of course, is going to be messy and ugly and not fun, and it's definitely not perfect. But it should be taken because you want to come out of this experience depleted as you may be and knocked down as you may be with some sense of, I guess, drive might be the word, or
Yeah.
ambition might be the word, to continue to walk forward. And like you said, it's the little tiny little micro things that can get you there. No one's asking you to like run a marathon day one. I tried, but like not literally a marathon. Like, let's be
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
I'm not a
Yeah.
runner, but look at me. But like, you do have to keep going forward,
Yeah.
and the big feelings, anger, are what keep you going. And I think it's a good thing.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I could just keep talking forever, but I think what we should do is that you need to come to Barbados because I invite every guest to Barbados. You need to come to Barbados and we need to sit on a beach and we need to keep this conversation going forever. You're going to be a tough act to follow. You're the first of our guests in our Moments of Courage series. So you've set the bar high.
Yes, kicking off the season strong.
Yes, you
I'm
have.
literally gonna go on Google Flights like right now and look and see how much they are to
Seriously.
Barbados.
Seriously, I mean, thank you so much. And we're gonna, round up now. We'll keep talking a bit after. I'm of course gonna stop the recording, but I'm just gonna say thank you officially. And then
Thank
we
you for
can
having me.
keep talking. You're welcome.
This has been Cancer Bites. Real people, real life with cancer. Take what you need, leave what you don't, and come back when you're ready. Cancer doesn't define us, but our voices do. On behalf of Stacy and Siobhan, see you next bite.